With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more. Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, hanging out with SJ, bringing the new year in.
Yeah, man. 2022.
2022. You know, having our team adjust, it's kind of like getting new uniforms or getting new helmets or a new field to play. I mean, there's aspects of this that are very new, and yet we bring a little bit of skill and ability and history and knowledge and wisdom, forward. So,
well, I just got to jump in and say, when you talked about the team being like on a farm, 100%, I like that. What popped into my head was the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
This small little band,
Yeah.
of all different people and creatures who are going against this massive army of darkness, right? And we've all got our different skill sets and learning to come together as a team so that we can overtake that darkness is...
Paul talks to Timothy about three different, he talks about the farmer, he talks about the athlete, team, and he talks about the soldier.
Right.
When he is describing to Timothy kind of how to operate. And we've adopted that in a unique way that's unique to us, that, Zoweh operates like a farm. There's just chores and day to day and feed the cattle and plant seeds and harvest there and fix the broken tractor and get on it and, start moving through the fields and doing that together, so shovels and different tools like that. But then there's the training, the teammate, the being a team has all those illustrations of what it is to train, to take care of our own bodies, souls, hearts, minds, bring that to the team and do that together. And then there's the on mission, like you said, the warrior, the king state. We've got all kinds of stages on our team, and yet we're on mission together against the darkness, against Mordor, against forces that oppose goodness. And we live in those, move in a day in any one of those three different categories or different descriptions of how we operate. But you're the resource guy. What's coming up in the new year?
Yeah, man, definitely the Deepening Journey. But even before that, I just want to mention, we've done some of our own marketing. And to keep with the farm analogy, we've had our farm stand. Right.
Yeah.
And we've had it out front, and we've put signs out on the road, and we've attracted a lot of attention with that. But at the end of this last year, we decided to put some resources towards marketing in the larger social media, web kind of world. And man, we have seen a huge response to that. So I'm excited. And we did that with The Heart of a Warrior, which, for those of you listeners that don't know, that was published originally in 2015.
Right.
So it might feel like, 2015, man, that was 6 going on 7 years ago now. That might be a resource that's a little bit long in the tooth to do a major marketing campaign with. Well, as I said, we've really only done kind of, our own farm stand and our own billboards and things like that. So the traction that The Heart of a Warrior is really what I would consider our flagship resource.
To date,
the traction it's getting out there in the world is really exciting. And we're going to continue with some of that effort moving into 2022. But the Deepening Journey, as we talked about, and Sherry just walked by the door of our recording studio here. I almost want to ask her just impromptu to come in here and tell us about the Deepening Journey. We'll see.
We want to have Robin and Sherry come on.
Yeah, we want to have them both
do
on.
A whole series on some of the Heart of a Woman and things that are available in that resource. So that's on our docket for the new year.
Yeah, we'll have a series with the two of them on coming up soon. But it's exciting. It's a 6-session video series, and it uses footage from the Deepening Weekend. With Robin, Sherry, Dana, and Lene, as the speakers in the content. And then Robin and Sherry kind of almost like our responders at our weekends.
Yeah.
Responding to on the video resource, responding to the teaching from the weekend. And then there's a workbook that goes along with it. So that's exciting to think about, a women's resource like that. And then I want to talk about the Rendezvous Project again. We've mentioned it here before, because as we've said before, who knew launching a small group curriculum in February of 2020 wasn't a great idea, right? Until we found out.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. Yeah.
So we kind of feel like the Rendezvous Project hasn't quite had its day.
Right.
So we're working towards that. But then probably, what will it be, April or May? Your third book, King Me, will be coming out.
Yeah. It's been a 3-year journey about King Me, and writing that and walking with God in that. There's some things that really pertain to not only just the resource that the book will be, but what God's done to me in the writing of it, and what I'm hopeful to carry into the new year. So, depending on how large or small some project might be, you feel it either largely or small in what I'm about to say, that it's been 50 years in the making.
Right.
Writing a book's not the same as writing an email, but the emails you write today, there's a lot of history to whatever those, few sentences. So you bring that with you into the day-to-day. We talked about the integration of it all. So on the calendar, it feels like that's right, April.
That's what we're hopeful for.
Yeah. And probably getting to do, some more things as we get to the end of February. Patrick, has our video guy. I mean, we're slotted to do a lot of video work and get some things promotionally together. But all that to say, it's been impactful as I think about the new year, SJ. Things that when you write, when you reflect, and then when you edit and edit and edit and edit, I don't know of another process that takes me to such deep waters of my own heart and my own walk. And I think that's what sometimes the new year even affords us, just for a little window. What does it look like to reflect and to be quiet? We talked about it a little bit in the earlier podcasts about solitude. And when I'm in that writing process, working on a chapter or working on a section in that chapter, it is observing what you're saying, observing what you're writing. And is this not just the way I want to say it, but is this relevant? Do I believe this? The window around Christmas, you mentioned Bob earlier. I was talking to Bob, and I had to kind of put everything down for a couple weeks, because to be present with family, to do Christmas, travel, be together.
And that's probably part of the process too, right? Sometimes you got to back away.
So that's the point.
Yeah.
I wonder how often in our day-to-day we come back to, you talked about my little sticky notes and my lists and napkins and stuff. That's one thing, but I come back to those because that's where the satisfaction and fulfillment is. Have I done those things? When you look at a journal and you can actually take the time to look back at what you wrote in February 21, where were you? What was God doing? Was talking with a daughter just this morning who's got some concerns about a job and school. I've got 2 in grad school, and finances and different things. It's who hasn't been there?
Right.
And yet you look back on some of those calendar times for us this past year, and we have learned it's going to be okay. It might be hard.
It might be hard, yeah.
It likely is.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's around that corner versus just a long stretch of road that, feels like you can drive with your legs.
Yeah.
It's kind of autopilot. And shoot, we're going to self-driving cars now. That's going to happen someday, probably in our lifetime. But yeah, SJ, I think what I'm talking about, though, is how I'm excited about the resource, but what I am more excited about is what I get to take away from creating it and from walking with God. Most of it's in my mornings. Sometimes I have enough juice at the end of the day to get back into it, or I have a certain thing I need to get done for a deadline or rewrite of something, but it's a lot of good, quiet morning time over a few years goes into those 250 some pages. And I hope it has an impact on lives. I hope it touches, it's a predominantly men's book. And yet I think even for women who are trying to love men, it could be a really helpful read, a helpful exploration for them to see some of the masculine journey.
There's no doubt, man. It makes me think of just last week heard from somebody because of this marketing campaign I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There was a woman that reached out to us asking about, tell me more about the book, or should I buy this for my youngest sons and that kind of thing. She bought the book and read it herself.
Oh, yeah.
And was so impacted by it. And so her eyes were open to the masculine journey.
Mm-hmm.
She's buying it for every guy in her life now.
Yeah. That's
so
great.
It's very, just to your point,
yeah.
The feminine hearts, just because this book, King Me, is aimed towards the masculine heart, doesn't mean that the feminine heart couldn't benefit from picking it up too.
Yeah. And I would say to our women listeners, because I live with 4 women, and there's a big part of this, the mission of this book is to help men change course. When I think about, SJ, what women have suffered from, where they have been hurt, and where their wounds predominantly come from, it's from men.
Mm-hmm. We're the perpetrators.
Right.
Yeah,
and we say this at our conferences. We say this in a lot of closed doors places, but that if men are the problem, and they are a significant part of the problem, then maybe they could be part of the solution if they could get their hearts back, if they could walk with God, if they could have healing in the wounded places of their lives, as well as training in the goodness of who they are in the kingdom. So let's take a quick break.
Yeah.
And we'll come right back with more on the Exploring More podcast.
All right. Sounds good.
Hey, friends and allies of Exploring More podcast. We wanted to bring some attention to some of our free downloadable resources on our Zoweh website. First, there's a 14-day devotional on being fathered by God. This is the same devotional that you can get a PDF download on our website. You also can find on the YouVersion Bible app. Also, the 14-day devotional on the heart of a warrior, another great resource to walk through with men or in your own time alone with God. The last free download that we want to draw attention to is the biblical theology of the heart. Is the redeemed heart good? Is this piece of equipment that is so vital to living in the kingdom, is it good or is it not? Download the biblical theology of the heart to find out more. You can find these 3 resources and many other free downloads and free audio files on our website at www.zoweh.org. Welcome back, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Talking about, before the break, SJ, you mentioned King Me. Yeah, King Me is a lot about the masculine cry for validation and initiation. And there's a feminine cry for that. There's no doubt. But
absolutely.
I'm going to leave that book to some other people to write. I can write that as a on the field teammate of my own crew. And my wife and girls have helped me tremendously see the feminine heart and this thing that we're exploring and talking about: healing, training, validation, initiation. But that's kind of the essence of it. And when we get down the road a little bit, we can talk some more on the podcast about it. But I'm bringing that into the new year. That's the point of this podcast. And I feel like as it's coming to its final refinements in 2022 and then eventually published, it was weird for me to finish Heart of a Warrior and it turn a corner. It'll be weird to turn the corner with King Me. There's a really oh crap, people are going to read this. Oh man.
So it's sort of like you get all your lines, then you read through the lines, you read through the script, and then you just start doing rehearsals. Then there's dress rehearsal, and then there's opening night.
Yeah.
Which feels very different.
And then there's reviews.
And then there's the
And then there's the critics.
and the crowd reaction and all that coming.
And you don't do it for that, but you know that's kind of part of it. And so my point is, it's a process. It's not time for those things yet. but they're coming because I've experienced this a few times. And yeah, we carry the hope of it being good, whatever it is, whatever you've been working on. You know, if you're the guy who does budgets at your company, you hope it's met or received with kindness. You know, you have been working at it, or you're a grad student, like two of my girls, and your grades, and you're, you know, coming into a timeline of, okay, I got one more semester, I got one more year. What is it to, you know, step into the next one? I was talking with Ashley over the break, and it was so interesting, SJ. This is my oldest. She's halfway finished with her graduate degree program. And instead of being excited, she's been enjoying it so much. It was like, no, I'm kind of sad that I've crossed the 50. I'm like, wow, that's just,
I don't want the game to end.
I and she's been enjoying it so much and learned so much. So, which is good. That's where her heart is in this transition into the new year. But so when you think about the new year, SJ, and where's your heart go? What are you carrying into the new year?
Yeah, I'm still very much in a place of reflection and exploration about vulnerability, and less in a place of, you know, why is that a challenge and why is it important in my life? And more now, you know, the opportunity to wield that well. And so I was on the 5-year plan. You know, God revealed that to me in 2016. It's coming into 2022 now, of real exploration of that. And I wouldn't say in any way, shape, or form that I'm really done exploring that. But I think the exploration is a little bit different. Like you were just talking about your daughter who's finishing up grad school, you know, you've learned some things along the way. And again, it doesn't mean that your exploration is over. It just means now you get to wield some of that experience you had and things that you learned as you continue on that journey. And that's kind of where I am with vulnerability. And then moving into, you know, where God brought me through that vulnerability journey is to exploration of my own story and what we would refer to as the orphan spirit. And a spirit of abandonment. So I'm still unraveling what that has meant in my life and kind of
how it's affected
absolutely
what it's meant to your life. I think you said it some weeks ago about how it's how you've lived under it and not knowing.
It's been a lens of interpretation that I've looked through as I interact with others, as they say things to me, and that lens, I'm looking at it through that lens. And it's so interesting to just contemplate, you know, if I could go back and kind of watch the tape on some interactions that, you know, there's times where people say things to you and it just sticks with you and not always in a good way. And then you make assumptions and judgments and things based on that interaction
and interpretation
about that interaction or about that person, you know? So I'm kind of in that phase now of keeping that lens on my glasses, but not so that I can live that way, but so that I can see that way of interpreting interactions that I can remember with people that resulted in a judgment or an assessment or a declaration or a statement about that, and trying to unravel some of that to see, did I interpret that correctly? We talk about it at the weekend. What's the chances you've interpreted your life correctly, right? You know, pretty much zero. So, but, you know, with the wisdom gained in the moving forward in your journey, you can better interpret with hindsight what has happened.
Which is why reflection is really, really good. You know, living beyond yesterday, you know, trying to clean up whatever happened yesterday, and
the 48 in front of you,
and getting you know, into the day and what's carrying over. That 3-day window, it's almost where the gravitational pull is to just live that small. But if we're going to live the life that is large, then reflection and quiet and regular times of that. I love what you said about the lens. It's kind of like, wait, I have glasses on? Wait, what are these goggles called? They're from this manufacturer called the Orphan Spirit.
Right.
Or it reminds me of Roadrunner, Acme. Everything's from Acme.
Oh man, yeah.
And here's these glasses that have been issued, and I've been wearing them, and now I see differently.
I didn't know I could take them off, and I didn't know they were on my face.
Right.
So I think that's a huge part of this as we talk about it, Michael, this journey. Living in a place in this process, and I don't want to assign percentages to it, but I think I'm hitting more than I'm missing now.
Mm-hmm.
And even, we've talked about this before, an all-star hitter, hits 3 or 4 out of 10,
mm-hmm.
And so if I'm hitting that many of these times where I can live in a place where I can assume that my perspective is not always the right perspective, that maybe I could try to look at interactions or things that have happened to me in the past with a more objective viewpoint.
Yeah, challenging, man.
But just even the concept that could be something you can do or would do is the first step in this process. Just reflecting on things from your own perspective and saying, yep, that happened to me, and yep, that guy's an SOB or whatever. That's not really helpful.
Right.
But like you're talking about as you're writing the book, God's doing some things in my heart as I'm writing the book, right? As you're writing the book. Mm-hmm. God's doing some things in my heart as I'm investigating the orphan spirit, and I'm open. That openness of heart is crucial to what he might have for me that's different than what my declaration was about what happened.
Yeah. So what's so good about this, SJ, is we're talking about into the new year, but I could say into the next week, into the next day, into the next, what am I bringing into?
The next moment. I'm about to have lunch with my son and his girlfriend.
Right.
So what am I bringing
into that? That's
lunch?
right.
Yeah.
And I think to even ask that question, invites thought and a moment to ponder, okay, I'm going in. How do I hope this goes? Am I bringing some baggage? Am I bringing some judgment? Am I bringing some hopes into this conversations? What do I want to say here, Jesus? How do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that can change lunch.
Oh,
just
man.
Absolutely versus pulling in. And that's why I'm saying
slamming the gavel
living
down, right?
Living in the fast-paced, in the fast lane, in the to-do list, in the busyness is just not good for the kingdom man or woman. Mm-hmm. It's not good for our souls. You don't see as much, but that's up next time. Love to give our listeners some questions, maybe for the solitude that we mentioned a few weeks ago. What would be some ways that they could step into, how do I do this?
Yeah, so listeners, if you've got any questions, comments, you want to have a little more clarity about the new year and for your journey, just email us at exploringmore@zoweh.org. And if you would, leave us a rate review on your podcast platform of choice. It helps our message to get out there and to be found. And as we enter into this new year, close out 2021, I do just want to say thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm.
We really appreciate you.
Yeah. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.